Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive,
Right.
into the Aga Khan Development Network,
Okay.
or AKDN for short.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think, you know, our listeners are probably familiar with the incredible work they do across the globe. But what I think is so fascinating is how all their efforts are really shaped by these Islamic ethical principles.
That's right.
You know?
It's not just development. It's about taking action based on these values.
Yeah, and we're talking over 30 countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
A workforce of about 96,000 people,
Huge.
impacting millions of lives.
Yeah.
Imagine this, a network providing care to 14 million people each year,
Wow.
reaching 2 million learners and offering financial services to like 50 million people.
That's huge.
That's the scale of the AKDN.
It is.
And so the question that we want to explore today is, how do these Islamic ethics actually lead to, change that we can see?
Real change.
Yeah. How does that happen?
Yeah.
So let's unpack that a bit. What are some of the core Islamic principles that we see at play here?
Well, I think compassion, or Rama in Arabic,
Right.
is absolutely central to this.
Yeah.
It's not just about feeling sympathy. It's about taking action to actually help alleviate suffering.
Yeah.
And you see this reflected in everything from the AKDN's healthcare initiatives to educational programs, particularly in these regions where access is limited.
Right. It's not just an idea.
Yeah.
It's hospitals,
Right.
schools, programs
Exactly.
on the ground.
Yeah, think about the Aga Khan University
Right.
with campuses in places like Pakistan,
Yeah.
Kenya,
Right.
or the Aga Khan Health Services
Yeah.
working in Afghanistan and Tanzania.
Right.
They're literally bringing quality healthcare and education to those who need it the most.
It's putting these ideas into action in a very real way.
Mm-hmm.
And you just mentioned education.
Right.
Islam places such a high value on the pursuit of knowledge, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes, seeking knowledge, and the AKDN really has taken that to heart, the
Yeah.
Aga Khan Education Services. Uh-huh.
For example, runs over 300 schools across 13 countries.
Wow.
And then there are the Aga Khan academies,
Yeah.
offering world-class education with a focus on developing ethical leaders.
It's fascinating how these principles are just woven into this entire network. It's incredible. Another principle that I wanted to touch on was adal,
Yes.
which means justice.
Yes.
Right.
And along with that comes the idea of equity,
Right.
of making sure that everyone has a fair shot.
Mm-hmm.
The Aga Khan Rural Support Program,
Okay.
for example, empowers communities in India and Tajikistan
Yeah.
to build better futures for themselves by addressing, the root causes of poverty.
So it's not just handouts. It's about really giving people the tools to thrive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we see that same commitment to equity and fairness in their microfinance programs, too.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I know inclusivity is also a huge emphasis within Islam.
It is.
So how does that play out in the AKDN?
You see this beautifully in the work of the Aga Khan Trust for Culture.
They're not just preserving these historical sites in places like Egypt and Syria.
Right.
They're really celebrating this diversity of human heritage
Yeah.
and fostering understanding between different cultures.
It reminds me of that amazing restoration project at Humayun's tomb in India.
Yes.
It's just stunning.
They breathed new life into that whole area, demonstrating that heritage is a living resource.
Right.
It's not just a relic of the past.
Yeah, it's something to be experienced and lived.
Exactly.
So we've talked about compassion,
Mm-hmm.
justice,
Mm-hmm.
the pursuit of knowledge,
Right.
and inclusivity. Are there any other, big Islamic principles that work in the AKDN?
Well, the concept of Khalifa,
Okay.
or stewardship of the earth, is so relevant today.
Especially with, the climate crisis.
Precisely, Islam teaches that humans are entrusted with the care of creation,
Right.
and the AKDN puts this into practice through a very strong emphasis on environmental sustainability.
It makes me think right away of the Aga Khan Agency for Habitat and all the incredible work they're doing on disaster risk reduction
Yeah.
in places like Pakistan,
Yeah.
Tajikistan.
Uh-huh.
They're literally saving lives through these programs.
They are. It's about safeguarding our planet for future generations.
Yeah, and all of these principles are so clearly reflected in the work of the AKDN.
Right.
But it's more than just a framework, It's embodied in the words and vision of the Aga Khan himself.
Absolutely. He's the spiritual leader of the Ismaili Muslim community.
Right.
And he is the driving force behind the AKDN.
Yeah.
His vision and leadership are truly inspiring.
Yeah, they are. So let's explore some of his quotes that really capture the essence of the AKDN's mission.
Okay, well, there's one that sums up their goal pretty well.
Okay.
He said that the ultimate aim of the Aga Khan Development Network is to improve the quality of life of the people it serves, regardless of their origin, gender, or religion.
I mean, that really gets to the heart of it.
Yeah.
It's about making a real difference in people's lives.
Right. And he's often talked about how this mission is driven by the ethics of Islam.
Yeah.
He has said our network's efforts are inspired by the ethics of Islam, compassion, tolerance, and human dignity. And they focus on helping those who are most vulnerable to become self-reliant participants in society.
So not just providing aid, but really empowering people to take control of their futures.
And he's a huge advocate for, partnership and collaboration.
Yeah.
Recognizing that tackling these complex development challenges requires a collective effort.
Yeah.
He has said the AKDN is not designed to compete with government or other organizations, but to complement and collaborate with them to address these challenges in a rapidly changing world.
Yeah. It's about using everyone's strengths to achieve greater impact.
Yeah. And he's spoken very passionately about the power of education, stating that education has been at the core of the AKDN's work because we know that an educated society is better equipped to create solutions to its challenges and opportunities.
That's beautiful. Yeah. It's about giving people the knowledge and skills they need to build a future for themselves.
Yeah. He's also a big advocate for ensuring healthcare is a right, not a privilege.
Yeah.
He has said that the AKDN health institutions aim to ensure that healthcare is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all.
Right.
We strive to deliver quality healthcare to the poorest and most isolated communities.
That's a beautiful vision.
It is.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the AKDN's work in cultural restoration, he's emphasized that the Aga Khan Trust for Culture works to demonstrate that cultural heritage is not just about the past, but a resource for improving quality of life today and for future generations.
It's about recognizing the value of culture,
our heritage,
and how that can enrich our lives.
Yeah, and all of these principles are brought to life through the work of the AKDN's diverse institutions.
So let's dive into that next. What are some of the institutions that make up this network?
Okay.
And how are they putting these principles into action?
Well, the Aga Khan Foundation, for example, works on a wide range of development initiatives. So the Aga Khan Foundation, or AKF, works on a broad range of projects. From rural development programs in places like India and Tajikistan to these early childhood development initiatives in Mozambique and Afghanistan.
It seems like they have such a holistic approach.
They do.
To development.
Yeah, always with that focus on community empowerment.
Right.
Working with communities, not just dictating from outside.
That's so important.
Yeah.
And we've talked about healthcare and education, but I'm really curious about the AKDN's work on, economic development.
Okay, well, they have a few different institutions dedicated to that, each with a slightly different focus, like Industrial Promotion Services, or IPS, for example. They invest in a variety of industries, from energy to telecommunications, tourism to agriculture.
It's like venture capitalism, but with a social impact lens?
That's a good way to put it. They're really selective about the projects they invest in.
Making sure they align with the AKDN's ethical framework.
So it's not just about profit, but it's about creating jobs, promoting environmental sustainability, and contributing to the well-being of the region.
Exactly.
Do you have any examples?
Absolutely. The Bujagali hydropower plant in Uganda.
Okay.
It's a major source of renewable energy for the country, providing electricity to millions and reducing reliance on fossil fuels.
Wow. So a win-win.
Exactly.
For development and the environment.
Yes. What other projects stand out?
Yeah, what else?
Well, they've also made significant investments in Central Asia.
Okay.
Particularly in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Okay. They're supporting industries that create jobs and boost local economies, but always with this focus on long-term sustainability.
It's amazing how they balance economic growth with these ethical considerations.
It is, and they're not the only ones.
Okay.
The Aga Khan Fund for Economic Development, or AKFE, also plays a big role.
Their investments are across a wide range of sectors, from tourism to financial services, infrastructure to innovative technology.
I remember reading about AKFE's work in developing sustainable tourism in Central Asia.
Yes. They have this chain of hotels called Serena Hotels.
I've heard of those.
They're known for their architecture and their commitment to preserving the local culture.
Yeah.
They're operating in some incredible locations like the Serena Hunza Palace in Altit, Fort Pakistan,
Wow.
Just imagine waking up to those views.
It sounds magical.
It is, and it's a great example of how AKFE creates these economic opportunities while respecting the environment and celebrating this cultural diversity.
Yeah, and I know they're also involved in telecommunications.
Yeah, particularly in Afghanistan.
Okay.
Their Roshan Telecom company has connected millions of people, providing access to information, communication, and, you know, these digital services that we take for granted.
It's easy to forget how impactful something like that can be.
It is. And then there's their work in microfinance.
Oh, yeah.
The Aga Khan Agency for Microfinance provides these small loans to entrepreneurs, particularly women, in countries like Syria, Tajikistan, and Egypt.
That's wonderful.
It's all about empowering people to build their own businesses, create jobs, and lift themselves out of poverty.
That's that idea of like a hand up, not a handout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the Aga Khan Trust for culture, but I did want to mention their work rehabilitating these historic gardens in Mughal India.
Those gardens are beautiful. I've seen photos.
They are.
But how does restoring gardens contribute to development?
Well, it's about more than just aesthetics.
Right.
These gardens are often these vital green spaces in these really densely populated urban areas.
Okay.
They improve air quality, provide recreational space, and even play a role in water management.
So environmental benefits, but also improving the quality of life for people.
Exactly. And often these projects involve training local residents in these traditional gardening techniques.
Oh, wow.
So it preserves cultural knowledge while creating jobs.
It's amazing how they bring all these things together.
Yeah.
The cultural heritage, the environmental stewardship, and the economic opportunity.
It's all connected. And what's interesting is that these gardens were designed centuries ago with many of those same principles in mind.
Yeah.
They were places of beauty, tranquility, and sustainable resource management.
It's like they're using the past to create a better future.
Exactly. And we see that throughout the AKDN, this commitment to drawing on tradition and innovation.
Yeah, it's really incredible how all these values, the compassion, the justice, the knowledge, the pluralism, the stewardship, it's in every aspect of their work.
It's not just buzzwords. It's really embedded in the DNA of the AKDN, and it's this commitment to ethical action that sets them apart.
We've covered so much.
Yeah.
You know, the institutions, the projects, the principles.
Yeah.
But I think what really brings the AKDN's work to life are the stories of the people whose lives have been changed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So let's shift gears and hear some of those stories. What are some examples that you can think of? So let's shift gears a bit here and hear some of these stories.
Okay.
What are some that come to mind for you?
Well, one that I always think about is Fatima's story.
Oh, yeah.
She was a young woman living in this village in Pakistan.
Okay.
And she was diagnosed with this really serious heart condition that required surgery.
Oh, wow. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially in a place where access to healthcare can be so difficult.
Yeah, it was a really tough situation.
Yeah.
But luckily for her, the Aga Khan Health Services, they have this network of hospitals and clinics all across Pakistan, including a really advanced heart center.
So she was able to get the treatment she needed.
She was, thanks to the AKHS.
Okay.
Fatima underwent a successful surgery.
Wow.
And she made a full recovery.
That's amazing.
But it wasn't just about the medical care itself. They also provided financial assistance to her family.
Oh, wow.
Because they wouldn't have been able to afford the surgery otherwise.
I mean, that's such a perfect example of compassion in action.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that healthcare is more than just procedures and medicines.
Right.
It's about supporting people through these difficult times.
And Fatima's story is really just one of millions. The AKHS is impacting lives every single day.
Right.
Bringing healthcare to people who might not have any other options.
It's really incredible.
Yeah, and talking about creating opportunities, I think about Amina's story.
Okay.
She grew up in a really remote village in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Where educational opportunities for girls were extremely limited.
I mean, it's heartbreaking to think about how your future is limited.
Yeah, it really is.
Like that.
But her life changed when she got a scholarship to attend an Aga Khan Academy.
Yeah, we talked about those academies a bit earlier. They're really amazing schools.
Yeah, and she really thrived in that environment.
That's wonderful.
She did really well in her studies. She went on to university, and eventually she got a degree in engineering.
Wow. I mean, from a small village in Afghanistan
Yeah.
to a degree in engineering, that's incredible.
It really is, and that's not all.
Okay.
Amina went back to Afghanistan,
Mm-hmm.
and now she's working on these projects to improve infrastructure and access to clean water in these rural communities.
She's really using her education to make a difference.
It is.
Yeah.
And it shows how the AKDN is helping to cultivate this new generation of leaders, young people with the knowledge and the ethical framework to face these global challenges.
And we've talked about healthcare and education, but are there any stories about economic empowerment that come to mind?
Yeah, well, there's David's story.
Okay.
He was a farmer in Kenya who was really struggling to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
He had a small plot of land,
Okay.
but he just didn't have the resources or the knowledge to make it work.
I imagine that's a challenge for a lot of farmers.
It is, but David's life changed when he was able to join this Aga Khan Foundation program that gave him training in sustainable farming practices.
So it gave him the tools to help himself.
Exactly. He learned about things like soil management and water conservation.
Wow.
Crop diversification, and he was also given access to, better seeds and fertilizers.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and the results were amazing.
Okay.
His farm just flourished.
That's great.
Yeah, he was able to grow a lot more food, provide for his family, and even hire some extra workers.
I love that.
It really shows how the AKDN can help people escape poverty.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about him succeeding.
Okay.
David's success really inspired other farmers in the community
That's great.
to try these same methods, so it led to this broader economic uplift.
It's like a ripple effect of positive change.
Yeah.
I love hearing these stories.
Me too.
Fatima, Amina, David, they represent millions of lives touched by the AKDN.
They do, and they remind us that even in a world with so many problems, there's still hope.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are dedicated to making a difference.
Right.
Guided by, a commitment to ethical action.
And it's been such an incredible journey.
It has.
Exploring the AKDN.
Yeah.
This network that's improving lives.
Yeah.
Empowering communities and taking care of our planet.
Mm-hmm.
Guided by these values of compassion, justice, knowledge, pluralism, and stewardship.
All of those things. And as we wrap up, I really encourage you to keep learning about this.
Yes.
Visit the AKDN's website and see if there's a way you can contribute.
It's an organization that really shows the power of people.
It does.
To make the world better.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Aga Khan Development Network.